Hello, Kyle here. This is my fan mail to you for the month of August. If you're wondering why I'm wearing headphones, it's not to hear myself, it's to hear less of my neighbor who's like listening to something very loud downstairs. I wonder if the mic is even picking it up. Um, Sometimes you get sick of being surrounded by people's noise. Sometimes it's way better than it used to be. These neighbors are cool. They're rarely this loud. I don't know what that deal is. Normally, I just run the AC for white noise. But I don't want white noise when I'm talking to you. This is my fan mail to you. If you haven't received one of these from me, what I like to do is just make a video that's like a behind the scenes perspective on my thoughts of what happened with the last month of Easy Allies. August we still got a few more hours left of August. A big old month, a pretty crazy month. So lots of thoughts. Hopefully this won't be a long video, something that is digestible for you. Um, um, August is phase 4 for Easy Allies, and phase 4 is simply a nice marketing phrase for changes, right? It is, obviously it's a joke on what Marvel does, right? But also um, it is a way to say we're changing, which is something that I think is important for Easy Allies, who tends to, in my opinion, look complacent, right? And so it's nice to have this idea of like, hey, we're reading your feedback. We had the survey, right? And this is how we're implementing everything. We want to change. We get what you want. Things like that. So. At the very, very beginning of August, actually, this was the end of last month, Easy Allies had this big meeting about the survey results, because I wanted to have this survey. We finally did it last month. Gathered all those things, and we learned a lot about the community and everything. And then the plan was, I think, we just had to have our big response faster than I think we were planning on, because, to be frank with you, our Patreon funds were dipping, and like not Easy Allies funds. I think like because of Twitch, because we had a good Twitch month, we're kind of like equal. But I think that publicly facing, that number is public. People see that, and you want to make it clear that we're doing something, that we're not just going to let that slip and slip and slip and do nothing about it. And so I think that was basically why Phase 4 happened, and soon, right? Toward the beginning of August. It happened actually kind of in the middle, as opposed to like waiting and just like, doing it at the end of August or the beginning of this month or whatever. So there's lots to figure out though, not just with the plans. I have to admit, I thought we would do more changes though. Like, I'm not sure what else would have changed. You know what I mean? When I'm like, I thought it'd be a bigger change. We changed it a lot. The Phase 4 meeting took so long. It was, I think, 8 hours or maybe more. We had a dinner break in the middle of this meeting. And then again in August, we had another meeting after that to just like, okay, here's what exactly we're going to be doing. Here's exactly how we're going to message everything. Here's what we do now. Here's what we save for later. Here's what we really shouldn't be worried about. Here's what we should be worried about. Here's the PowerPoint, all of these things. Jones is going to be back on this day. Let's do it right then. Let's make this whole thing. And that was pretty cool. It was pretty cool, the things that everybody was on board for. Like, I wasn't the only person who wanted to shift the podcast to Thursdays. Bloodworth as well was like, hey, I was going to suggest that. Let's do that. Let's just go for it. And then there wasn't a lot of pushback on something like that. I think that's the biggest shift, the biggest thing of Phase 4, at least for me personally, and I think publicly as well, is just more days in the studio, going to the studio more often. As someone who just is tormented by how behind I am on BoxPeak, it wasn't like a change that I'm like, yeah, baby, more days in the studio, let's do it. But a change that's like, I'm aware that this is something that I should be doing. And so it's fine that group streams are on Tuesdays, podcast on Thursdays. I'm locked in. I will be going to the studio these 2 days every single week. So that's a shift for me personally. But I think one that like looks good and is good for easy allies. It's so yeah. Hey man, let's do it. I can just work harder on Box Peak the other days. It's still there are still 5 other days in the week. You know what I mean? Um, it was cool to put the presentation together. It was cool to do the live stream. To see reactions to changes like that. I liked the PowerPoint. I liked doing that. Ian put the whole thing together with slides and everything. It was it was rough to kill some stuff. It was rough to see the reaction to uh, tabletop escapades, to Dungeons and Dragons getting outright canceled, because it's so weird. It's a beloved show. It's something we talk about a lot. I mean, even maybe since months after Easy Ally started, is the balance between shows people love and shows the majority of people watch. Right, toward the end, Tabletop Escapades is one of our least popular shows views wise, but most beloved shows. Um, but that wasn't maybe it was a factor, right? But it really came down to the phase 4 meeting came down to what do you want to work on, and that's what I love is like Ben's like I want to work on Don't Skip. I love Don't Skip. I have a vision for Don't Skip. I can make it a thing. This is what I'm passionate about. This is what I find rewarding. And so I think that was really cool. And so hey, if something like tabletop uh, gets vaulted for that, whatever, good. You know what I mean? Like good for Huber Syndrome to get vaulted, so Huber can work on this show that he is much more excited to work on. Yeah, personally, the idea that Gundam streams, the streams where it's just me and Ben and Brad, and anyone else who wants to join putting together Gundam models, was such a frequent thing that popped up in the surveys. Like let's say 1 in 10 or 2 in 10 surveys mentioned Gundam streams as something they would like to see more of. That was enough to be like, oh yeah, that's important. I'll do that. It kind of it sucks again to lose a day, lose that you're losing a Box Peak day to do that. But also cool. I didn't realize that many people had missed it. That a year after the last one, that people were like, man, those were good. And so. There are some things you just got to be willing to do in a way, and that's kind of what phase 4 for me is about. It's like, okay, I it's not painful to do Gundam streams, right? It's still a joy. It's still fun. It's still I have a bunch of them, and I'm looking forward to doing it. And so it's like, do you really have a good enough reason not to do that? And so I didn't. Implementation, what's funny is, we did the Tuesday stream where we make all these announcements, and then a couple of days later I fly off to Germany. And so it was kind of weird. I felt disconnected from phase 4 in a way until I got back. This was my first week of phase 4. And maybe jet lag affected this. It was a brutal week. Tuesday was brutal. Wednesday was brutal. And man, I was just here all day Wednesday, but it's just like hard to recover. Still working on some stuff, but just like, oh. And then Thursday was just like, I had to take a nap in the studio on Tuesday. Nobody's cool with me. Like, everyone's like, look at him taking, like, why can't I just take a nap? And what's funny is like we have a couch in the green room, but like that's the room where like people, it's like connected to the fridge. You're gonna get interrupted, and so I'm like, okay, I'll just take naps in the storage room, where like it's just a bunch of things, and like somehow even that's not safe. Somehow even then, for some reason, Bloodworth's got to come in and put a game away when I'm trying to just take my Tuesday night nap. It's like, why are you in here? Why are you in here? Why do you got to do this? Why do you got to put that game away right now? Anyway. It's been a brutal recovery week. I think I might be normal today. Today might be my first like normal non-jet lagged day since coming back to the U.S. Anyway, pretty cool. Like, it's so weird. It's weird to do the podcast on Thursday. One thing we discovered that I like didn't even think about is we do this podcast on Thursday, and like I'm good. I'm good to like go from the podcast into a stream. That's what we normally do. We normally do group streams on Tuesdays. And so I was like, okay, yeah, and just me and Jones do our Pokemon stream. We said goodbye to Ben and Brad at 5 p.m. and that time sucks. It's the worst possible time to have to drive away from the studio. You're looking at a 2.5 to 3 hour drive if you're leaving LA to if Ben or Brad or Damiani or myself drive. And so I wasn't being considerate when we were planning that. I didn't really realize that saying goodbye to someone at that time meant torment on the road. And so immediately we're going to be changing when we record the podcast on Thursdays, which is kind of a bummer. I mean, I liked the time, but you have to be considerate of other people's lifestyles when you're making plans like that. And so going forward, yeah, the podcast will be recorded at 7 p.m. as opposed to 3 p.m., which is a big shift. Yeah, but hey, whatever. It's not really that different for myself because we'll be doing the Pokemon thing earlier. Basically, for me, it's swapping those two things around. Yeah, so not a big whoop. It's just kind of interesting. We talked about all the meetings we had, these 8-hour meetings, and then another 3 or 4 hour meeting after that for phase 4. And just these are the things that don't occur to you even then. You gotta be considerate of humans. The thing that always I always think of is when in college, when I was producing a TV show and I just like booked a bunch of shoots on a Saturday, one shoot, a bunch of scenes. And the guy who was like my director of photography, basically, who was just shooting everything, he comes up to me after like 3 or 4 hours. He's like, "Hey man, are we gonna have pizza?" And I'm like, "Why?" He's like, "Because we've been shooting for a long time and everybody's hungry." And it's like a thing you don't think about. It's hard to, when you're thinking about production, it's hard to think about the humans. You're thinking about the show first and foremost, and then the humans second, and you got to think about humans. Anyway. Takeaway from phase 4 after week 1. It seems like there's a lot of excitement within Easy Allies, which is cool. Like Jones seems to be liking it. I think Damiani likes it. You know what I mean? Like it's cool to see like enthusiasm. Where I guess if you asked me honestly, I would sense that it was waning. And so, yeah, to get the Easy Allies enthused about a thing is pretty exciting. And so, yeah, good first impressions from my 1 week of phase 4. I love doing a Pokemon stream with Jones. I don't like love group streams. You know what I mean? I like I like the gimmick ones. I like the tournaments. I like a group stream with a purpose. I don't love the streams where we all gotta act up. You know what I mean? We all gotta like play a game and be funny the whole time as a group together. I love a one-on-one stream. I love like a 3-person stream. And so the idea of like getting to play Pokemon with Jones every Thursday is a delight. So I look forward to that. It sucks that going forward, it's going to have to be like cut off at 2 hours because we're going to have to go shoot the podcast. But 2-hour streams, yeah, no, it's a little short for me. And then lastly, what I wanted to talk about, I guess I'll do it quickly, is Gamescom, is Germany. Like, we talk a lot about the flexibility that Easy Allies allows us. So cool that I could take off time to, 1, work at Gamescom, but then 2, take extra 5 or 6 days on top of that just to enjoy Germany. I have this opportunity, a free flight to Germany, business class, by the way. I had one of those seats that like flattens out. So cool. Like, I won't have another one of those until who knows when, right? That's not an opportunity that I get, and it's not my salary. So, you know, it's cool to have stuff like that, a hotel room in Cologne. Yeah, so it's cool, I'm sorry, to have the freedom to work it, but then also to just, like, be able to take time off without, like, somebody checking up on you. And so it's like, you've taken 10 days off this year already, Bossman. Sorry, I can't let you have that. And what's cool is, I mean, you know, I still worked. We still put together a podcast. And what was funny is, So the month before, we at the end of every month we have a phone meeting basically where we figure out our schedule for the upcoming month. And I knew I was going to be gone for Gamescom week, and I said, would anybody be willing to host the podcast in my absence? A pause of silence, and Jones just says, we've never really done one without you. I'd prefer to do like a Q&A, love and respect only special. And it's like, okay. And then like I think like a week later I decided like, well, that's a really bad week to do a Q&A only special. Oh, and because I think we'd figured out that Phase 4 was going to start, and so it'd be like a 10-day gap between episodes. Um, right, because the episode after Gamescom would happen on a Thursday afterward. It would just be like too long to wait after Gamescom news, and so had the idea to do a solo cast from my hotel room. That wasn't easy. Man, I thought production days were going to be so much easier in Germany. I was like shot at like 9 p.m. at 10 p.m. every night. And so we do the show, I get back at 9:30 or 10, and it's time to start working on the podcast. And there was more to research than I thought there would be. You know what I mean? I thought I'd be talking like 2 or 3 game announcements and wave goodbye, little half-hour mini episode. Not the case because of Insomniac. That was a lot to like read up on. You don't want to just blurt stuff out, and I did. You know what I mean? You can never research everything you want to talk about in terms of a podcast. So I did all that. Microphone, I just ended up using, the stupid headset for my iPhone earbuds. Camera, I brought my old camera that I got for old Boston at Home episodes. Man, the hotel Wi-Fi was so slow. I had to upload it later on. I had to upload it the next day. I had to upload it in clips and chunks that Jones had to assemble. He had to take the audio, and I touched up the audio a little bit. It was still real bad. I did noise reduction on it. I did compression on it, and despite that, it was still not what I thought it was going to be. I should have brought this bad boy. I should have brought the Blue Yeti, but it's like a lot to bring, and I always get nervous about customs because you're like, hey, I'm just here for travel. And it's like, why is this big, chunky, heavy microphone in your bag then, sir? So didn't bring the microphone. And so, yeah, it didn't sound great, but